time? Did you have to wait for your credit card to get validated? Were you able to pay in the way that you like to pay where you're located? Someone really needs to look at that and make sure that if they're going to be outsourcing any part of that process to an online payment platform, you got to have confidence that that platform is going to operate and have the reliability and service level you need where it's going to be used. We've had to look at this because, of course, we need to provide online commerce options for our products globally. Our number one piece of learning over the years, some tough learning from some things that didn't go well, is that you need to have the right type of payment in every location in the world that you're going to operate any kind of e-commerce. And a lot of companies, believe it or not, don't do that today. Like, how many times do you go to a site and you think you have eligibility to pay for it, and you get to the process and you realize you need a US credit card, right? Or, I mean, it happens to everyone in Hong Kong all the time, right? And eventually you just need to make sure that if you're going to offer that kind of online payment service, you have to be able to offer it in the way that your local users are going to expect. And in many countries around the world, that's different. Some of these online payment platform providers take care of that for you, and they make sure all of the locales are taken care of appropriately, but some don't. So.
Yeah. I think, yeah, please, you have another question. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that Facebook hasn't walked away from online commerce. They've just signed up with Bango. If you heard of it, it's a UK company. It's rolled out in UK and Europe now. It's payment through your mobile service provider. So they call it frictionless payment.
Oh, thanks for clarification. I think you meant was their own initiative. Commerce initiative. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Kate, do you have any point? Otherwise, I'm going to make a wrapping
I think we should wrap up there. I know, Chad, you've got to leave. You've got an interview at 5.
All right. Well,
I'm not interviewing for another job.
I think there's one more question. Yeah. Can we take one more question?
Sure.
Please.
Hi, my name is Waylon. I'm from Agenda Wonderman, a digital agency. And I guess my question is more from a planning perspective, because I think talking about SoLoMoCo is really exciting, and there are lots of opportunities. And but a couple of things really hit home. I think Mr. DeLang mentioned that something about implementation, and also Mr. Murphy mentioned about how we always have to fight with management and also maybe the client about how to implement these things. So I guess my question is a little broader. It's about because I work on a lot of regional accounts, and so we do regional planning, and then we have to execute locally. So. But a lot of these things, when we talk about doing location-based things and mobile-based things, there are a lot of different, variables that goes into implementation or rolling out the campaigns at local levels. So I guess I'm asking whether or not this model needs to change, because is there still, what is the role of regional marketing agency or regional planning role when we go to roll out? There's so many different things. I mean, when the latest campaigns we're looking at, when we roll the regional ideas, there's so many tweaks and changes that happens on the ground that the regional perspective or the regional messages may not even apply anymore. So I mean, we're looking at a lot of these issues where it's really hard for us to control or to focus the messages and also have it be relevant to local markets. So yeah. I just want to see.
I think it's a good question. I have a view on that, but before I go to my view, let me just turn to the panelists and get their perspective. Let's get from Chad first, so he can answer, and if he has to run, he can run away.
Oh yeah, I'll make my comment, and then I'll make a swift exit. I think to answer your question, there are so many different dimensions that reflect on the localized experience. From a messaging standpoint, you want local relevance, either in context to the place that you're at, cultural relevance, whatever that may be. An aspect of the campaign may be a retail activation in a local market that requires a whole different set of planning and strategy. So the truth of the matter is there's really no way to sort of unilaterally answer that question. It really depends on, from a marketing strategy and maybe even a commerce strategy, what the intention is at the sort of with that local data or with that localized experience. That would be my comment.
Adam, Mark, do you have any perspective? Chad, you carry on before.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you have any perspective to add from the role of regional versus global versus local?
Yeah, I think this is a big challenge. I think that you'd have to look at. You described kind of what the challenges are. I think we have to look at how can we then deliver the opportunities, and I think it's around looking at the lowest level of technology. That's the common factor in all countries that you're releasing a campaign in, which would be some of the social media platforms and mapping software. I mean, this is not really an issue in most markets right now. So within that kind of flat level of technology, I think a lot of campaigns are possible. But you're right, if you want to be more advanced, more technologically advanced, yeah, your options are either you build it yourself, and the best way, and I think that I would really like to see innovation happening in this kind of in the marketing services area, where I gave the example of iButterfly, which is rolling this out in other markets in Asia Pacific. I'd like to see more of those platforms kind of come out, because that makes it a lot easier to develop campaigns in. Currently that's not there, and I think that's the opportunity.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in roles on the client side of trying to figure out how to execute this stuff as well, and it's tough. I think you have to look at, I mean, the ideas can always be central, I think, but I think in terms of, like you said, implementation, I think it really depends on what the mix of the campaign really is. If you've got a lot of mix that's kind of offline, like if, for example, in-store, in retail store environment stuff like I talked about earlier, location-based service stuff that might tie into local mobile operators, for example, if the technology is going to require that. Some of those scenarios, you're going to have to make sure that you either work with a company that has presence in that country, or you figure out how to make sure that the solution is localized for that market as well. But for example, if you're doing something only online and it doesn't require a lot of connection into local services, then I think there's no reason you might not be able to just do it centrally, regionally. But I think it depends on the campaign mix, I would say. Is our experience, and I think some companies make a like a hard rule that it's all central or it's all decentralized, and some do it on a campaign by campaign basis. So your clients are probably the same. There's probably a mix.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the global, regional, and local tension doesn't really necessarily change. Perhaps it gets more difficult. So when I put my corporate marketing hat on, you want to execute something locally or regionally, it depends upon company by company, how you're set up a strategy. What I like the fact is that somebody at the top has to buy into all of this, so the budgets really flow. Otherwise, it'll be a challenge, it'll be an implementation nightmare year after year, right? That's how once they see it. The regional role is also, in my opinion, is an interesting flux, right? When you come to Asia, and you have multiple languages, multiple cultures, etc. What's the role of regional, and especially for foreign companies coming in? They haven't necessarily experienced that. So that layer is new, and in my opinion, the regional layer has to establish its credibility. As a mini global. I know for a company that we are working with in insurance, they're sort of giving up this regional layer, and it's becoming just global versus local. In Asia, I don't know whether they'll succeed or not. And then from a technology perspective, my current business, I just don't think companies should build it. Not just because I run a business, because when I was making these decisions in corporate, it's not their core competency, right? So it's better, the way Mark was saying is, yeah, there may be multiple platforms to work with until, one single platform comes up, which is not going to happen. Because some platforms are language specific, some platforms are need specific. So marketing will need to learn to work with multiple platforms and different companies, and that's the way to go, at least in the foreseeable future, yeah. Anyway, we've come up to time. I want to thank everybody for staying this long and hearing our perspective. I hope it was very useful, and we covered a lot of ground. I'll pass it on to Kay.
Okay, now one of the ways that we educate is through our Asia Digital Marketing Yearbook, which there are copies of floating around. It is statistics and trends on digital marketing country by country for Asia Pacific, broken down into social, mobile, e-commerce, user behaviour, online advertising, and demographics. And the edition that's floating around has the demographics for every country. So do pick up a copy, and then you can download the full 96-page book from our beautifully short URL, asiadigitalmarketingyearbook.com, as a free PDF. But thank you, Azar, Adam and Mark, as well as Chad, who had to rush off to interview someone. I hope that you actually learned something today. If you have any questions, do come up to the panel now before you head off. And I hope to see you at an ADMA event again soon. Thank you.